The king has a problem. He has no male heir.
The Greek world tried to retain property in families. And the way you retain it in families is you leave it to the firstborn son or the eldest male heir.
Acrisius's only child is a daughter, Danae. She has no children of her own. So the king consults a prophetess to ask if she will ever bear him a grandson.
Acrisius is told in prophecy that if his daughter ever had a child, that child would rise up and kill him.
He finds out that the son of his daughter is in fact going to kill him. He sort of freaks out and decides that he needs to prevent her from ever having a child to begin with.
This fear of generational shift, this fear of losing your power to the next generation, was real. If you had a kid and you had something worth taking, at some point you needed to keep an eye on the kid.
Overcome by terror, the king hatches a plan to save his own skin.
Acrisius had his daughter Danae walled up inside of a tower where no one could see her. It was a pretty miserable existence.
Danae is trapped with no fresh air and barely any food. It is the king's way of killing her without getting blood on his hands.
The king kept waiting for news that his daughter had died and was very surprised that he never received news that she had died of starvation or thirst.
After a while, they began to see lights on and hear noise and sound coming from the tower, and so Acrisius went to see what his daughter was up to.
The king enters his daughter's chamber and discovers to his horror that Danae is not only still alive, she's a mother to a son, Perseus. Acrisius is stunned that someone accessed the secure tower and impregnated his daughter. But the baby's father isn't a mortal man. He is king of the Greek gods, mythology's most prolific womanizer, Zeus.
Zeus, who seduced so many women in so many myths, sees Danae through the grating and falls in love with her. And so he comes down to her in about the only shape that could come through the bars, which is a shower of gold.
He took the form of a cascade of gold and poured himself into the room and then was able to make love to her in that way.
Zeus's shower of gold may have been inspired by a real natural phenomenon, one named after Perseus.
Probably the most impressive and the most visible meteorite shower in the sky is the Perseid meteorite shower. Certainly it looks like a shower of gold coming down if you've ever stopped and watched it in August. You can see the individual streaks with a yellowish color to them. In mythologies around the world, women can be impregnated by various natural forces. And it's not just the shower of gold that we have in the legend of Perseus. We have women and animals sometimes being impregnated by the wind, or in various mythologies, women become pregnant by the sun.
Perseus is born both divine and mortal, a type of hero known as a demigod.
So this demigod idea means that this person has some features that are very godly, some divine powers, but at the same time he is mortal, he can die. I suspect that the Greeks invented this idea of a demigod because they wanted to reach the gods as much as possible, to create images of themselves that are closer and closer to the gods.
To fulfill his destiny as a demigod, Perseus must first survive his grandfather's wrath. King Acrisius fears the boy will fulfill the prophecy he dreads and grow up to kill him. His first impulse is to murder both mother and child, but he fears Zeus's revenge. So he devises a plan to let nature do the killing for him.
Acrisius decided to put both the mother and the child into a boat-like construction and throw them into the sea.
Danae and Perseus have been left for dead, with no food no direction, and no protection from the dangers of the sea. Meanwhile, on a dismal island beyond the waves, Medusa is adding statues to her garden of death. Warriors turn to stone trying to capture her head. She possesses a power every conqueror desires, even real conquerors, like Alexander the Great. Medusa's power to turn men to stone may have spawned the famous phrase, "looks that kill." But the ancient Greeks believed her power could be used for good as well as evil. In their language, the name Medusa actually had a positive connotation. It meant guardian. Her image was often used to ward off danger. She even appeared on the armor of some of the world's most feared warriors. Evidence of this can be found in one of the time capsules of the ancient world, Pompeii.
When they were excavating the city in the 1830s, archaeologists found a very large mosaic which depicts a battle between Alexander the Great and the Persian king Darius. And on Alexander's breastplate is an image of Medusa.
The battlefield wasn't the only place where Medusa's powers were sought. She was also used to scare children.
The idea was that you would put the symbol on the outside of your stove, and this would prevent children from opening up the oven door.
Now, the Medusa was something that Greek parents used to use in order to scare the kids in order to eat their food. Say, eat your food or I'll ask the Medusa to get you. So it was something that was very horrendous, very horrible, very mesmerizing, very frightening.
In the myth, Medusa has a price on her head. Warriors from across the Greek world travel to her remote island, seeking to steal it and use its petrifying power as a weapon against their enemies. So far, all who have tried made the same fatal mistake. They looked at her first.
The ancient sources are relatively silent on what Medusa must have thought as she's just sitting there living out her life amid a huge panoply of stone corpses. You can imagine that it would have been a very kind of strange situation. You've got little stalagmites of people all over the place, and there she is all alone, but never had the satisfaction of actually being able to engage with anybody. So you can imagine Medusa living out her life, kind of waiting for the next person to waft into her purview and get turned into stone.
But one hero is determined to break her spell. As Medusa languishes among her statues, Perseus is coming of age across the sea. When he was a baby, he and his mother Danae were cast out to sea by his grandfather, King Acrisius. Mother and son were expected to die. But Perseus's divine father, Zeus, protected them. They washed up on an island called Seriphos and settled there.
He grows up into a nice, strapping young lad, as it were, very strong and also very strong-willed and very protective of his mother.
Perseus has a very good reason to feel protective. The ruler of Seriphos has plans for his mother.
The king of Seriphos was not enthusiastic about having Perseus around, partly because he had his eye on Danae, who is still a young woman and beautiful, and he wanted to marry her.
The king hatches a plan to take Perseus out of the picture. He demands an expensive gift from all of his subjects and vows to banish any who don't comply. He knows that Perseus is poor and won't be able to deliver.
Perseus, being a young man without a father and really without a family, if you didn't have a father in ancient Greece, it meant that you were really very much a kind of social outcast, didn't have any gift to bring to the king.
Perseus is cornered. If he is exiled, his mother will be forced into an unwanted marriage and be separated from him forever. He makes an impulsive decision. with deadly ramifications.
Perseus says, well, I may not be able to buy a great gift because I'm poor, but I'm going to do something that no one else has been able to do. I will bring you the head of Medusa.
It's a suicide mission. No one has ever returned from Medusa's island alive. But for Perseus, there's no turning back.
It's a matter of honor. He can't get out of it. He has to bring the head of the Gorgon.
If Perseus succeeds, he will return home a hero with a stature to challenge the king and protect his mother. But if he fails, he'll be turned to stone. In Greek mythology, the names Perseus and Medusa are forever linked. The consummate hero and the ultimate monster. It is a story that began here, among these ruins. This is ancient Mycenae. According to legend, this once great civilization was founded by Perseus himself.
Mycenae was the greatest of the ancient city-states back in the Bronze Age, and it ruled sway over a large swath of ancient Greece.
For millennia, it was thought that Mycenae, just like Perseus and Medusa, was a myth. The only surviving reference to it was in Homer's epic story, the Iliad. But in the late 19th century, a lost civilization was rediscovered.
Using Homer's epic poems as a guide, archaeologists in the 19th century were actually able to locate these great ancient citadels. And what an amazing adventure it must have been to find out that not only was Homer talking about something that really existed, but now they themselves were in contact with it as well.
Mycenae lies near Argos, the city where Perseus was born in the myth. Its ruins are a window into the people who invented the story of Perseus and Medusa, ancient Greeks who used mythology to explain life's mysteries. The city's structures were so massive, later generations of Greeks believed they were built by gods.
They would look at the ruins of those palaces and see monumental masonry. This was a kind of feat that they couldn't imagine themselves doing. It seemed like something that only heroes could do.
It was from these ruins that the story of Perseus sprang. The hero remembered for building the city and taking on Medusa. It is the ultimate challenge. Perseus confronts it with the bravado of a boy who is eager to prove himself a man. But he is woefully unprepared for the task at hand. Perseus has no weapons, no experience, and no idea how to kill his target.
Another piece that makes Medusa so terrifying is that they wouldn't have had a real sense of exactly what she looked like. Anyone who had seen her before Perseus would not have lived to tell the tale. So all he knew about was that there was this monster that was so hideous that if you ever caught eyes on her, you would be frozen and turned to stone.
He stalked off and began his adventure. And it wasn't long before he realized that he had no idea where he was going. But as heroes often do, and especially heroes whose fathers are gods, he soon gets supernatural aid.
Lost in the wilderness, Perseus does what many ancient Greeks would have done under the same circumstances. He prays, and the gods hear him. His father Zeus sends down a divine messenger, Hermes, who gives Perseus the jump start he needs. A pair of winged sandals.
One of the things that Perseus has to do is travel long distances very fast. And being an era without airplanes, here comes Hermes to offer a solution, those sandals with wings that he himself, as a messenger of the gods, uses. So he gives them to Perseus, so Perseus wears them, and he can fly through continents at the speed of faster than a jet.
Now that Perseus has a set of wings, what he really needs is a set of weapons.
Perseus has got everything going for him. I mean, he has divine blood, he's got great powers, he's been brought up to just on the cusp of manhood. He's ready to take on these nasty beasts.